Hi, I'm Morrison. I'm an author, blogger, and recently a poet who, having been raised in Northern Ireland, now lives in the beautiful cathedral city of Lincoln, England. Now, I've been writing for about 2 or 3 years about the spiritual path, and many folk on social media sites have got in touch with me, sometimes a little bit confused as to where I'm coming from and why I write. Folk come from the Christian camp and others come from the mind-body-spirit camp, while some, without any religious belief at all, even contact me to ask what makes me tick. Now, I was contemplating this the other day and I thought, well, what does make me tick? When I saw a bird flying overhead on its way home to its nest in a local tree that's near my home. And it came to me that my writing really has two major aspects. One, I write to encourage and to affirm and authenticate all those who have suffered a form of spiritual abuse, either within a religious or a pseudo-spiritual group setting. Now, this isn't talked about very much in religious or spiritual groups, but it's something that I think is essential to our emotional and psycho-spiritual health. I have never heard a sermon within a church building on spiritual abuse. I've never heard a talk on spiritual abuse in a group of another religious persuasion, or indeed of a modern spiritual movement. Spiritual abuse is more common than we all imagine. It is something that's brushed under the carpet, very much like sexual abuse or child abuse. It's something that just isn't talked about. Only souls who manage to come out from under such abuse and manage to recover and get themselves into some kind of state of equilibrium once again, sometimes are brave enough to talk about it. But generally, the religious and spiritual worlds just prefer to ignore it. So I see my purpose as a writer to bring this hidden aspect of religious dynamics out into the open, not to condemn the abusers or the groups concerned, but so that we can look at how this abuse takes root and takes hold within faith groups and spiritual groups. It's something that needs to be talked about, something we don't need to be afraid about, and something that we need to discuss in order to find solutions to it and to avoid ourselves and others getting trapped in such situations. Now, I've recounted in my own story, The Prodigal Prophet, of my days in the charismatic groups within Northern Ireland in the 70s and 80s, and how eventually I walked out on a church that I worked for that had slidden into a form of spiritual abuse without even realizing it. So I write from experience and not from theory. The other wing on the bird of my literary efforts is, I guess, my dearest and deepest first love, and that is the person of Yeshua the Nazarene, commonly known to in Christianity as Jesus the Christ or the Messiah, the Anointed One, the Son of God. In my writing, I try and bring Yeshua out of all the religious overlay, the religious icing that's been placed on the cake of his being, and try and make him a real person with a real spiritual teaching that's applicable to day-to-day life, without having to delve into a form of pie in the sky. When we actually analyze it, much of Yeshua's teaching about the soul is referring to our psyche, that interface with our space-time world that we all have to grapple with every day. Yeshua was a mystic, clearly a very unique and special one with an amazing take an ultimate reality that he referred to as Abba or Daddy, a form of endearment to the Jewish God Yahweh that he worshipped. Now, Yeshua's mystical teaching is, I believe, very practical. It's something that we can bring into our lives that brings a poise, a relaxation, a gentleness into the very fibre of our being. And yet it's one that we don't have to throw out our views of Yeshua with. On a personal level, I believe Yeshua was the incarnate Logos of John's teaching. I also believe he was the incarnate Tao, the Chinese ultimate reality that Lao Tse spoke about 500 years before his birth. But yet I wish to make his mysticism relevant to our belief system that we have today. I can't stand prepackaged Christianity, or indeed prepackaged spirituality. Both just spell plastic to me, and lack of authenticity is something that we're plagued with here in the Western world. Now, in my soon-to-be released book, Way Beyond the Blue, I will be continuing to tackle these dual themes, those of the psycho-spiritual dynamics within our groups that lead to spiritual abuse, to the ways that we can escape from such abuse and enjoy a new level of freedom, and the mystical path or way that we can come to find as home, the place where we will find the presence of Yeshua and Holy Breath or Holy Spirit in a way that we could never do when we were victims of abuse. So I trust that you will continue to bear with me as I try and fly high in the Spirit, bringing you both aspects of truth that are ultimately to bring us into a place of happiness and joy and well-being. I don't wish to engage in rivalrous fighting and discussion with those of different opinions. I have learnt over the past years that in my own frailty and brokenness, I have to walk in the love of God. A love that embraces everyone, no matter what their belief. And so I'd encourage you in your own walk to fly with these wings, to be a sign of hope for those who are suffering abuse, but to be those who also enjoy their faith and belief in Yeshua the Nazarene, the one who came to reveal the very nature of divine love. Thank you.